Welcome everyone to our 11th virtual artist talk in our ongoing series presented as part of Nexigom Presents Fourth Line Theatre at Home. I'm Kim Blackwell and I'm so excited to spend some time today with the amazing Beau Dixon. But before I do, I have a few things I just want to say. First off, I want to acknowledge that I am live streaming to you from Treaty 20 Michi-Sagig territory in the traditional territory of the Michi-Sagig and the Chippewa Nations, known as the Williams Treaty First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island. The area in which Fourth Line Theatre is situated is called Nojijiwanon, Ojibwe for place at the end of the rapids. The shores of the Odenabe River was a gathering place for Indigenous people. Odenabe, or Tawnabe, means river that beats like a heart. We respect the treaties of peace and friendship and are thankful for the generosity of the Anishinaabe people in sharing their land with us. We would like to pay our respects to the elders, past and present. We would like to acknowledge that the Williams Treaty First Nations are stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters, and that they continue to maintain and carry out this responsibility for those here now and for future generations to come. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge our season sponsor, Nexicom, for their continued support of Fourth Line Theatre, and Exit Realty Liftlock as our major sponsor. Thank you. Some housekeeping notes. I want to let you know that your audio is muted. If you'd like to submit a question to Beau or me, we would be happy to answer your questions during the Q&A session at the end of the talk. To ask a question, simply click on the Q&A button at the menu at the bottom of your Zoom video window. You can type questions and our host, Lindy, will collect them and give them to us during the Q&A. Also be aware that if you experience any technical difficulty or exit the webinar by mistake, you can just simply re-enter by clicking on the Zoom link we sent you earlier today via email, and you can get back the same way you arrived. Be sure to follow our social media, e-blasts, and visit our website to register for our upcoming events. You can also visit Fourth Line Theatre's YouTube channel to view all of our virtual events after the live presentation, as well as our digital Festival of Light and Dark series of videos by local artists, Stephen Hannigan's Art versus COVID documentary series, and Beau Dixon's Sizzlin' series premiering next Monday, March 1st. Beau and I will talk a bit more about this series this evening. And now, on that note, I would like to introduce Beau Dixon.
Hello.
Hey, when are you going to learn to play piano, do you think?
I wanted to be a concert pianist for the longest time when I was a kid, but I discovered rock and roll and that was it.
And jazz and blues, right? Like all of that sort
Jazz
of
and
side of
blues,
thing.
yeah.
Well, maybe I'll ask you to play. Do you know any classical still, or that's all gone?
No, don't ask me to play classical.
Okay, good. So, okay, I write that on the donut. Hey, so thanks so much for joining me.
It's great to be here. This is a great show. I've been watching the other ones, and it's very informative and entertaining.
Thanks, Beau. So where are you right now, if I can ask?
I'm in Peterborough. I'm back at my house. In September, I had a beautiful place in the beaches, a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto. And then when the pandemic hit, September came around, and it had to be done financially, and yeah.
So when was the last time you lived in Peterborough? Because you really are like you've taken the whole country by storm theatrically. So when was the last time you sort of lived here, had roots here?
So I would have tenants staying at my place. So I guess I've been in and out, Kim, for the past ooh uh, 8 9 years, just
Wow.
sort of in and out living. For the longest time, I was couch surfing at friends' places in Toronto, subletting a lot. And then the last 2 years, I was either bunking with Kat Sandler, a good friend of mine, or my other dear friend, also my niece, Jade. And so, I felt like I was, for 8 or 9 years, sort of like the frat boy, like just sort of bunking at people's houses. It was very exhausting.
Because
But
you're weirdly a homebody for a guy who's been doing that for almost a decade.
yeah, it's so true. Like, I love waking up, and here at the house I had a studio but just got it renovated. So I used to love just putting on my bathrobe, making tea, coming down, working in the studio all day. And nighttime after 5 I would have my students. And yeah, I could stay in the house all day. But as you know, like, my life for the past 10 years has been just going from one gig to another, um, which is very similar to what it used to feel like being on the road with a rock band.
Yeah, so I want to talk a bit about that, but I want to say that this will be the most unusual one of these conversations that I've ever done, because you're probably the person I'm closest to that I've ever interviewed. We've known each other like 19 years. I think you auditioned for Fourth Line in 2002 for attrition for Ryan Kerr's play. Is that right?
That's right.
So we'll talk about that. It's so funny. I read an article. Was it one of those Peter bios in Peterborough this week or whatever that's called now? Paul Rellinger interviewed you 2007, and you were in rehearsals for Beautiful Lady Tell Me at Fourth Line, Shirley Berry's play, and you were talked about the director, how you got involved with Fourth Line. The director saw me on BT, and then it was very funny because I was like, well, that's me. That was me.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I want to ask you about, okay, born in Detroit, is that real?
Yeah, yeah, but don't let that get around too much. I don't want to get drafted or anything.
Oh, okay. So how long are you down there? What brought you guys as a family to Detroit? Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm sort of the black sheep of the family. I have two older brothers, and I was born in Detroit, the States, but
You have an older brother and an older sister.
what did I say?
You have two older brothers. I was like, whoa, something.
Oh my goodness.
I
Can you
was
imagine?
well, it's like that's a big reveal.
No, my brother, I love him so much.
Yeah.
And
So
he's
Lance
such
and
a,
Lisa.
yeah. Anyway, I have an older brother, older sister. They are both born in Canada, Ottawa area. My parents were both born in Canada. They met in the East Coast. My dad is a minister, retired now, of course. And so he just happened to be offered a church in Detroit, and yes, I was born there, and so they were there for, I'm going to say, 9 years. 9 years. So I was there for about 7 years.
Oh, so you
Um,
remember Detroit?
oh, very much so, very much so. I remember the services. All the ladies with the fads,
The hats
the hats.
and call and response, right? Like to
Oh
come
yeah,
back.
oh yeah. And dad was very theatrical. He would do a sermon, and he would get mad at the congregation. The congregation would start yelling back at him, and just the passion, and the choir. And then I remember, service would finish. We'd be all downstairs, coffee, having coffee, whatever, cookies, and then all the men would be gone. And then mom would take my hand, she'd take me upstairs, would walk up 3 flights, and all the guys, there's a basketball court in the church, and all the men are shooting hoops. So it's like, as soon as the service is done, they get out of their suits, they go upstairs, they're playing basketball. It was so dreamy, and it's so, like, it sounds like it's like from a movie, like a Spike Lee movie or whatever. It's like, no, that's what it was. There was church on Sunday, basketball right after church. My dad had a show. He was producer of a show called Deedle Doors, very much like Romper Room or Polka Dot Door. Yeah, and he was the producer of this show, and it was somewhat of a Christian show. And Deedle Doors, you go into different rooms, and each room consisted of a different cultural setting. There'd be cooking classes, there'd be, nursery rhymes, like, and dad, he was like Raffi, he would sort of take you to the next room with the guitar, and he programmed it. It was, I'm not sure. It wasn't. It was somewhat of a local Detroit.
Okay. Like a Kojiko kind of thing, like a local.
Yeah, like a CKVR. Or it wasn't PBS, but it was something like that, and it was very successful. And sometimes I have to remind myself, and I talk to my sister Lisa. It's like, oh yeah, Dad had his own show. Like he was like the Dick Cavett of, or Mr.
Children's
Rogers of,
Christian, yeah, of
yeah,
children's
yeah,
TV in Detroit.
that's right.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. So wait, but I'm confused. Your dad, it was a Baptist preacher, but I think of your dad as an Anglican preacher.
No, he's Anglican. So in Detroit at Grace, it was Episcopalian, which is the equivalent
Yes.
to
Okay.
Anglican.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Baptist, but you know, the culture in Michigan and a lot of the states, a lot of the churches, if you're black, you're very vociferous in church. You're very animated. It's oh yeah, the passion, the
That's hilarious. So what, I'm so curious, what made your mom and dad decide to come back to Canada, and was it to London? Is that where you guys went next?
right. So it was a time, a very tumultuous time in Detroit. This was the 70s. Things were changing a lot for the better. There was the Detroit riots, just like 4 5 years before I was born. And so there was a gentrification happening, and the auto industry was slowing down. The industrial, the factories. A lot of people were moving in the outskirts of Detroit, Lansing and stuff like that. So Detroit was kind of falling apart. It wasn't the best place to raise to have a family. Dad and mom knew this rather quickly, and it was like, I think it's time for us to go back to Canada. I was of the age where, let's put him in a kindergarten, a school, and Lisa and Lance were getting at that age. So London, Ontario. Dad was offered another church there. And we lived, that was night and day, because we lived on this sort of side street. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with London, Ontario, but there's Storybook Gardens. Storybook Gardens is huge, massive park, sort of a, the all the nursery, Humpty Dumpty, Jack and
Okay, they
Jill, and
have
it's sort
like
of, yeah, it's like Rapunzel Castle, and you can pet the donkeys, and there's seals and stuff. And we lived across the street from Storybook Gardens, and so our backyard, or our front yard, our neighborhood was this this fantastic utopia of just field and park and ravines. And man, it was great. And my piano teacher lived right across the street. He was our neighbor. And that was, yeah, that was very quickly, as soon as we moved in. And I remember we went over there to meet them, and we had dinner over at their place. And Dad reminded me of this. I thought I had said to him, I want to play piano. But he said, I originally said, Dad, can I play drums? And he quickly sort of distracted me. He's like, well, no, Gary, he teaches piano. Well, we'll get you a piano. Because there's no way, there's no way my son's going to be banging on the kit.
a, a quiet Christian home where I'm trying to do my sermon.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, so I want to ask you, like, I have this vision, which is probably completely wrong, of a little Beau Dixon in a little suit, singing his heart out and dancing at his dad's church in Detroit. Was it then? Like, when did they discover you could sing the way you sing?
Yeah, it didn't happen at church. I was sort of just always, I was such a daydreamer, and I was looking around. I remember I would just watch. I was a people watcher. I would see Dad just sort of like what is he saying? And the music grabbed me, and the spectacle of it. But it wasn't until um, it was London, Ontario. Um, and I would sing at church, but I don't think I would sing very well with the hymn book. But grade 8, public school, London, Ontario, a teacher put me aside, said, I want you to audition for a musical that I'm directing here. It's Oliver. And I knew, I was in grade 8. I was the only one with a mustache, grade 8. I knew it's
Megan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He needed someone tall,
Yes.
to be put beside Oliver. So there was that height difference. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And my friend and I convinced my friend to do this audition with me. We did, yes, a scene from West Side Story.
Oh, again. Okay.
Jet song. And I remember because I practiced for so long to impress the teacher to do I would stand on a chair and then slowly tilt it down. So I'd stand on it and then land on the ground with it. I'll show you some other time.
Okay. Please don't do it right now.
And I wasn't that good of a singer, but all of Fagin's songs didn't really call for it. It was sort of a Rex Harrington sort of monotone singing. So I wasn't that good, but I was really impressed with my acting. And also I did this a lot, like, you've got to pick a pocket or two, like use my
finger. You're doing that now. That's your big signature move.
Oliver. And yeah. So it wasn't until grade 9, South High School, my sister's English teacher was doing a semi-professional version of the Fantastics. And one of my teachers said, I saw you in Oliver. You should audition for the Fantastics. So I go do the audition, and I had a horrible voice. And Mr. Krisak, the director, who's also the English teacher, he said, well, your acting's okay, but your singing, it needs work. Tell you what, here's a phone number of a vocal teacher. You go, I want you to see her, and then come back to me in a few weeks. He paid for vocal lessons, and I remember it, Kim. It was the second or third lesson with this teacher, and all of a sudden,
something fell into place.
I just knew it. I understood. It was and I knew, I was surprised, and she looked at me while I was singing, and she was like, you're getting it. And it was like a click. It was something just in my body that was just like, no, just make these adjustments. And sure enough, I went back to, ready for my callback. And Mr. Krisak was just like, okay, you got the part. And I am, I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful that he paid out of his own pocket.
Oh, he paid.
Oh yeah, he fit the bill. He paid for my lessons, and I'm forever grateful. And I have, I called him up. He saw me. Actually, he found me because I was doing Guys and Dolls in Stratford. And then sure enough, I get this Facebook message, I'm Mr. Krisak, I directed you in Fantastics, da da da. And he had me come over for dinner. He's still living in London, and we just reconnected, and it was like we haven't stopped hanging out.
But what's amazing about you is you always give credit where credit is due for the people who help you along the way. Like, I know that about you. I know that I've heard you talk about these teachers before. I hear you when you talk that you don't feel like you maybe could take ownership for your success and who you are without crediting people. Do you know that about yourself?
Yeah, but I appreciate you saying that, Kim. And that has been brought up in the past, and I think I think that I'm incredibly insecure. Um, and I think I have a problem. Yes, just saying, you know, yeah, not bad, Beau. Like,
Yeah.
I,
That you
I
have to explain how you did well by telling about all the people that helped. It's a bit of that imposter syndrome thing, right? A little bit that people struggle with. You have no need
yeah.
to, but it's incredibly kind and generous when you do it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think it's I think it's my upbringing, as well as um, yes, my upbringing, and I've been raised to just give credit where credit is due, but also to be aware of where I've been, to be aware of my past, and to give gratitude, and
Because
yeah.
you have a healthy amount of ego, and I don't say that in a bad way, but you also have an incredible humbleness. And I wonder how much of that is mom and how much of that is dad, do you think? Can you think of it that way, or is
Um, I remember Dad would take me to a lot of. I don't know whether he would take me in the car to a lot of his errands, because a minister, a lot of your responsibilities is to be a community, to be in the community, and to check in on the elders, and to check in on, just to make house calls. And I'd hop in Dad's car, and I remember sitting there and just watching him behave with other people, just his how he's so personable, and how he could just take control of a room and really make the other person feel comfortable. He you just see the person sort of sink back in the chair and just drop their shoulders, and Dad would smoke back then, and he'd be like, "Can I bum a cigarette? I'm going to take a cigarette." Sometimes you just take a cigarette, and the conversations that would happen with just two people smoking. So there's Dad's side, where he was just so commanding and forthright, but just receiving and welcoming. And my mom was someone who was, you know, elbows off the table, just smile, look at them in the eyes, but constantly reminding me, give respect to your elders. Constantly, um, there was that constant. She was constantly checking in to make sure that we were very courteous, very very proper, and smiling, and just, it was important. So Dad would never say it, but Mom would always say it. Just make a stranger feel welcome.
Hmm.
Just
Well,
so
Lisa sure does that. Lance does that, and of course you do that, right? You do anything for anyone.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about London because you don't, but is that where your mom and dad's marriage fractured, and some of you went to Ottawa and some of you stayed in London? I'm curious how you got to Ottawa because I know you ended up in high school in Ottawa.
Yeah, so my parents separated, uh I'm going to say 89, um in London. And so there was the division of the family. Is Lance stayed with Dad in the rectory. Mom moved out. Lisa moved in with Mom. So it was sort of a guy, women stay with the women, men stay with the men for a while. But there was a time, I was of the age where it was like, and I'll say it, I'm still a mama's boy, Kim.
Yeah, you don't have, I know that.
You know that.
I know. You loved your mom. Your mom loved you.
For the people out there, I'm a mama's boy.
Yeah.
And very quickly, I realized I want to be close to Mom. Dad has always been a workaholic, and so there was, Lance had his study time. He was a independent, strong athlete, always just either studying or with sports. I was sort of like, what do I do with myself? I really had no sense of direction, no sense of what what I was doing. Like I barely got by in school. It wasn't until discovering that I could act and sort of act and sort of sing, doing the Fantastics. Mom was a big supporter of that. Not to say that Dad wasn't, but he was a busy man. So being with Mom in her apartment uh, in London was the best thing to do, because Lisa also, as soon as she was 16, 17, as soon as she was done high school, she was out of there. She went to Ottawa.
Okay. So
She,
Lisa went first to Ottawa.
Lisa went first.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm taking the long way around to your
No,
questions here.
I will keep you on track. Don't you worry. Tell me the
Thank you.
story. Yeah.
So Lisa went to Ottawa first, and Lisa always made the smart moves, and talk about independent. Holy smokes, she was wow. And Mom was like, "We're going to move to Ottawa." This was like, I don't know, a year or two after Lisa left. Um, and so this is why we left, actually. Wow, this is great that we're talking about this. We were in a restaurant and in London, and Mom overheard another woman talking to her friend or something about this school that her and the stranger was saying, "Oh, my daughter is loving it," and da 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 da. And my mom got up and she said, "Excuse me, what are you talking about? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude." And then she said, "Oh, well, this school, it's an art school in Ottawa. Here, I'll give you the number." Mom took the number. Before I knew it, she called the school. She got me an audition. We drive to Ottawa. I do the audition, and I remember hanging out with Lisa, and I got to check her out in residence, and I was like, wow, my big sister, what a city, Ottawa. And there's the parliament, it was like, wow, like it was as if I was like in New York City or something. And then I got back to London, and a week later or 2 weeks later, my mom was so excited that I got into this art school for majoring in vocal. And she quit her job at the hospital and got another job at the hospital in Ottawa. And so, Mom and I packed up the U-Haul and with our cat Frisky, and I went to Canterbury High School, and that was amazing. That was an incredible experience. I mean, uh, the movie Fame, it was totally like that. People like dancing on the tables in the cafeteria, people playing music in the corners. There was a talent show like once a week. Um, and it was this feeling of belonging, and like there was a school full of odd people, eccentric people, and people that you know kind of talked like me and sort of had the same ideas that I did, and but they were way more refined, and they were such role models. These people my age, and it was like they were letting me into this club of just wacky behavior and crazy ideas, and um, I didn't. I learned a lot because of music theory, um, and vocal. It was great every day going in and 90-minute vocal classes, and then there'd be 90 minutes of theory. And I really wish I applied myself more. It's not that I have a regret, because it was high school, and
Yeah.
I was in a rock band. Like I met my best friends. We started a band at that school, and we were
The biggest, hottest band at Canterbury at the time, the Freeway Band. Yes.
the Freeway Band.
Oh
And
my gosh. People who knew you then and knew that band, obsessed. You have
it's
to need to watch the Freeway Band on a local cable channel in Ottawa, like a VHS tape of it. It's great. But no, you were like you. So you is that what happened? You kind of became a bit of a rock god at Canterbury with the Freeway Band. Is that
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I mean, talk about ego, but it was like, yeah, we were pretty awesome, and you know, the other thing that was, you know, how I know that we were awesome. It's not as if we would play at our rehearsal or jam session, look at each other like, wow, we're pretty awesome. It was far from that. It was the four of us that just like to hang out together and just like get into nonsense. But it was our, you know, so then we got to, but then we'd go back to the school and we'd play for their talent show and stuff. And then there'd be girls hanging out after, like just sort of tailgating us, down the hallway. And there'd be, you know, teachers like, oh, yeah, all right, you know, and then, our mums would, help us with our gear when we had our first opening gig. And, they would be the only ones at the gig and they'd be sitting there. And it was like, this is weird. Why are our parents supporting us? And then my mom sat me down one day. I had written a song with a buddy of mine. He went to a different school, but he lives close to me. His dad was actually the U.S. diplomat the same time when Joe Clark was prime minister. And so anyway, Sean Moran, man, miss that guy. We wrote a song together, and Sean's mom heard it. And when I was over at Sean's place, Sean's mom was like, "Beau, that song, man!" And it was like, oh, it was sort of like, what's going on? Like, to us, it was just like, this is just our hobby. Like, why are people paying attention to us? And then mom heard it because Sean's mom ran over, played it for mom, and then mom sat me down, and I thought I was in trouble. And she sat me down and she said, this is a good song. And she was getting kind of angry with me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm glad you like it. And she's like, you need to make a decision. What is it that you want to do? I suggest you quit school and do this for a living. Focus on writing songs, put your focus into songwriting, into playing music. She was getting really stern, looking me in the eyes, and just sort of, and I so much so that I was a bit thrown off, and it made me nervous. I went to bed and I'm laying there, and it's like, she wants me to quit school. I have no idea how how to go about
doing that?
I thought about the world and just sort of like stepping out into the world. I have no idea, Mom, how to do that. I kept it to myself. It was never brought up again. I ignored it, sort of ignored it. I mean, to this day, my relationship was, it just blossomed from that conversation with her at the dinner table. My respect for my mom just, it blew up, and she became my best friend. But I understood, Kim, what she was doing as a mother. My grades improved at school. My 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 focus, everything. She was,
Kind of steering you straight in a weird way, or saying that you have to put all this work in to get to this thing that you actually are good at, maybe?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think there was two things, what you were saying, the form, but also I think she was sincere. If you were going to do it, then put your all into it. You can't, like, don't waddle. Don't wave, whatever the expression is. Don't
half-ass it.
Yeah. Just, you have to commit, whatever it is, whether it's the music or if it's biology, whatever, just, you have to commit, and also what I've learned as an artist, I call myself that, is, yeah, it's true. It's like, and the bass player, the second bass player in the Freeway Band, he was like 10 years older than us. That's when we knew it's like, wow, we are really good, because this, working gigging musician in Ottawa was like, yeah, I'll play in your band. One day when we were driving to this gig, he was like, yeah, just out of nowhere, he's like, yeah, I guess you have to do music. You play music because you have to. You do it because you have no choice in the matter. It's what you love to do. It's how you breathe. And that's I learned a lot through my mom and through Joe, the bass player. That was the beginning of it, where it was like, you don't do it as a hobby. If you're serious about it, you do it. Like Wynton Marsalis is that well-known story about Wynton Marsalis. His dad sat him down, probably in the same similar way, and he's like, "No, you're gonna study trumpet. You're gonna study music. You don't plan on working as a school teacher and studying to education as a fallback if trumpet doesn't work out, if jazz doesn't work out. That's not the right approach. You put everything into the music, because if you start thinking about oh, well, I have this sort of I'll file this away just in case my dreams fall apart. It's like, well, they're going to fall apart because you've already given up, and on
But
some level you've.
but so many people do it. It's so interesting that you didn't do it. Do you know what I mean? So wait, I want to ask, because one thing I would have wondered, people like the Freeway Band, was there any talk of like somebody managing you guys? Because it feels like that band dissipated as you ended high school, and then you started to become kind of a gigging musician. Can you tell me about like what happened and into
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Thanks for reining me in, because this is kind of, there was a turning point, and it was one of those moments where it's like, if only, or what if that had happened. So we're, our mums come to the gig, they're sitting there in this empty bar, we're doing these gigs. But then over time, other musicians in other bands in the city would sort of knock on our door and be like, we need an opener. Will you guys open for us? You guys are amazing. Guys that are like 10 years older than us, just like, wow, the things you guys are doing, that's amazing. We did this competition, and we came in third place. We didn't come in first place. We were really bummed out. But one of the judges came running down the street after, and he's like, I just want to say, you guys are amazing. If it wasn't for that guy with the wireless guitar who came in first place, we would have voted for you guys. It's like, wow, thanks. But so there's these people that are coming to us as, and if someone comes to you and says you're really good and you have no idea, then there's this element of like, oh, wait a minute. So then you start paying attention, like, oh. So my brother, he eventually moved to Ottawa to go to Carleton, and he saw us play. He really had no interest in me at all. I was just his little brother. Then he saw us play the Freeway Band, and he sits me down. He's like, okay, I'm going to manage you guys. Okay. Now I've got a publicist lined up, and I got a meeting set up, and da 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 da. And he's all of a sudden he's this like business entrepreneur, and he's going to take us to LA. Like, he's got big plans. And to see my brother shift, like, I've never seen him behave like this. I've never seen him care for me. I've never seen him, let alone, I have a product that he feels that he can market. We're in business together all of a sudden. Like, he's really taking control of the situation. He's driving us to gigs. He's renting the vans. He's dealing with the booking agent. He's dealing with the promoter, with the bar owner, and he would record the gigs, and then we'd have listening sessions afterwards, and then sometimes he'd press pause on the tape recorder. He'd be like, Beau, there's too many breaks in between the songs. You guys have to tune very quickly, get into the next song. What's your introduction for the next song? There's too much of a pause here. And he's shaping our set.
What is he? Is he like, what's his name for the Beatles? Like, is it what's his name?
It was George Martin.
George Martin, not quite like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, he's like the Colonel, Elvis's Colonel,
Right.
like, and like there was one gig where we made the first time we made the money, we made it $1,000, and I had never held $1,000, and we're fanning the money, and then we'd pass it on, like, here, let me hold it. No, you hold it on too long. And we're just smelling it, just like, and Lance took it. He's like, I'm holding on to this. We're not spending it. We're saving it. You guys are going to record a demo. And it was just, he did all the accounting, the banking. And it was just like, we were so mad at him when he took the money away from us. We were so mad. But then we were able to finance to go in a studio. We're 16 years old and we're in a recording studio. And we're dealing with this engineer and recording these songs. And the engineer is like, you guys are really good. It's like, why are people, it's like, we're not that good, but apparently we are good. And, and so I think with this, maybe it goes back to that, Kim, where it's like, for people to, the gratitude that I have for people to sort of stop and say, you are of worth, you are of value. Check yourself and put your chin up, raise your chin. You're onto something. I think it's always been important to me because I think it would have been overlooked. I think those moments of like my mom saying, you're onto something, or another bandmate or, another musician in town saying, I've been doing this for 20 years and you're onto something, it's, those moments.
Here, I'm just going to ask the question then. Freeway Band is not together. They're not a household name.
No, we're not together.
What happened?
And sorry, babe, if I'm not answering your question again.
I'm just curious. I'm just asking questions.
So we went at it for a while, and that's how I first ran into Peterborough. I'll get to that later, but so we were doing gigs and we were graduating high school. Our drummer, who was my best friend at the time, he was the greatest musician that I have ever, to this day, that I have ever worked with. And from day one, he was the first guy that I saw play Purple Haze. Like, we're sitting in theory class and, he's playing Purple Haze on the acoustic, but he's like also a drummer and he's also a bass player. And his musical mind was amazing. Dominic is his name. He moved to Toronto. He got into U of T for jazz composition. Mike Hopkins, who is my other dear friend, he moved to Toronto to go to U of T. Joe stayed in Ottawa and he still is like a well-known gigging bass player. And again, I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I doing? It's like, I don't want to go to university. I don't want to waste my time in school. I want to see the world. I want to do music. And then I got a call from this band in Toronto, and they said, you opened for us in Montreal years ago. We need a singer. Will you be our front man? I said, I'll be there in a week. I packed up my stuff, left Ottawa, and just moved to Toronto.
What was the band?
It's called Weatherman Groove Tube.
Okay, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, Weatherman Groove Tube. We lasted for like a couple of years, and then the members played in Dragonette, One Step Beyond, and the New Deal. And
wow.
They played also with Broken Social Scene and stuff like that. And so I moved to Toronto. The Freeway Band, we tried to keep at it for a while in Toronto, but just things happened. We all got busy, and relationships kind of got in the way of things, and it was I had left Toronto, and I was living in Toronto, but I became a roadie for a rock reggae band called One, and they were signed with Virgin Artists, and they were a big deal. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I won't be playing music, but I'll be seeing the world, and I'll be getting paid to, like fly to different gigs, and toured with them for a year. I came back to Toronto, and uh, I said to Dom, I want to be in a band with you, and like, let's do something. He's like, I'm moving to Europe, and a bunch of people are coming with me. And he named Jason Beck, he named Meryl Nisker, Leslie Feist, and named David Seghetti, and they all moved to Europe. And this was 98, 99. A few years after that, um, Dom and Jason co-produced Leslie's first album, Let It Die. And Leslie made it big in Europe. Meryl Nisker changed her name to Peaches. Jason changed his name to Gonzalez. And yeah, that was a real. There was that moment where it's like, do I go with them to Europe, or do I stay in Toronto? And there was this moment of fear, or of being an imposter, as you say. It's like, oh, I wasn't invited. I don't want to invite myself. I left to go on the road with another band. They've got this clique going. And that was the massive exodus, the Canadian exodus. They moved to Europe. This was 99, and they never came back. And
They're all still there.
they're all still there. Dom, who goes under the name Maki, he's in LA, and he's a record producer. He's produced tons of stuff. Yeah, wow. He's a very accomplished producer.
But you came to Peterborough.
Yeah, so the Freeway Band, if we back up 94, 95, we're doing our monthly route where we would do Kingston, Peterborough, Toronto, Hamilton, London, come back. We do that tour for a while, and my tour manager and I, and I should say, once I finished high school, I was adamant that the band, like, I really believed, let's do this. Excuse me, like, let's keep on recording albums, let's tour the world, like. So I became our manager. So I did it for a living. Like, I just, took a bit more of a cut from the gigs that we did, and just constantly was just promoting us, just producing, doing the bookings. So one of my brightest ideas was, every gig, every city that we would play, I would go with my tour manager a week or 2 weeks ahead of the gig, and poster the town, do radio interviews, just whatever it takes. One of these tours, our routes, we stop off in Peterborough. And I was just posting about this because Rick Fines posted what are some of your favorite memories of the Peterborough live scene? And I knew right away. I remember we were putting up posters, and we heard music on the second level. It was the old Market Hall, and we go in there, and it's packed. And there's this woman with a guitar, and it was Ani DeFranco. And yeah, and Esther Vincent, actually, when I posted this, Esther said I was doing lights for that show. And I remember, like, wow, this is amazing. And then, kept on walking and found the only cafe, and we're just taking a break from putting up posters. And, my girlfriend at the time, her brother lived in Peterborough. So we were hanging out with him, and, the bartender was really friendly. He's like, "Hey, I'm Bill." I'm like, "Oh, I'm Beau. this is weird. People are really friendly here. And anyways, we did the posters and the Freeway Band. We were really successful because of our posters as well. Our graphic designer would do real hippie posters, and because of Trent and just it was the era of Fish and the Grateful Dead. We sold out the Underdog every time we would play. And I remember the first time we played the Underdog, the sound man, long hair, came up to us, and we had just finished and we're unplugging, and he came over and he's like, got a scowling face, like, you guys are really bloody good. You're friggin' good. Damn good band. Sort of an angry sound man, it was like, it was Ian Osborne.
In Osborne, yeah.
And it was like, whoa. And I remember I said, thank you very much. And I went over to Michael on guitar, I was like, dude, the sound man likes us. It was like, if the sound man likes you, you guys, you are the next Beatles. If the sound guy digs you, that is a home run. And we carried that with us. And I would call Ian, and Ian at the time was booking the Underdog, and he would get us in there on good weekends. And he would help poster, and his girlfriend at the time, they were partners doing sound. And we would come back. Then we were promoted to the Red Dog upstairs, Red Dog Ray. We'd do the gig, then we'd stay over, like crash on the floor at some university student's house. We'd go there the next day to get paid. And we thought it was amazing because the payment system was you get 60 cents every beer that's sold, and you get the cover, and you get a roast beef dinner.
I know, get the Red Dog Ray roast beef dinner. We didn't have to do the tear the lotto ticket things.
It was amazing. It was like, what? Like, and the payout, like, it was like, oh my God. Like, and I would sort of, the first couple of times I would not stay for the dinner because it was like, I thought that there was a mistake with the payment. So I would just be like, just get the gear, put the gear in the car. Let's go. Like, let's get out of this town before they realize they paid us too much. But it was like, no, that's how well we got paid. That's how well we did in Peterborough. So anyway, I didn't see Peterborough for the longest time. I continued in Toronto, touring with my band. Years went by. I was in Vancouver touring with one. A tour had just finished up, and my mom announced she remarried. She was living in Cowichan Bay in BC, and she was announcing to me that she was moving back to Ontario. She missed Lisa and Lance too much, wasn't really into BC that much. She got a job in Peterborough, and she said, I'll pay you to drive one of the cars back to Ontario. And I said, well, I would love to, as long as I could take a month getting back. I would love to take the long way and see California and travel. And she's like, by all means. Loved my mom. She was so supportive. Can't believe it. So I traveled the States, got back, dropped the car off to Peterborough. And on the way, a songwriter in Guelph who I would sometimes play bass for, she said, I have a gig at a folk festival. Will you play with me? I said, sure. My mom just moved there. That's great. So go there. Mom got a house on Hazlitt. So just right the park there.
Wow.
And Kim, the first weekend, I get there and it's like I'm scheduled a workshop. What's a workshop? A music workshop? What is that? I was told by the organizer, well, you play with other musicians and you pass songs around, and there's usually a theme. I get there to the tent, and am I at the right spot? And he's like, oh yeah, you're in the right spot. And this older gentleman introduces himself, says, I'm Willie. And there's Willie P. Bennett and Dave Tuff, Phil Kummel, Jude Waldman, and I'm just,
like, where am I? Almost like, where am I?
I couldn't believe it. Like, my mom lives right. I can see my mom's house. I'm sitting with these folk. Like, I don't know them, but they're playing like they are. Like, these guys might as well be the next Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie. Like, and Fred Eaglesmith was headlining the folk festival that year, and the person that I was playing bass for, she opened up for Fred Eaglesmith, and then we were doing Fred Eaglesmith picnic. So we go and travel to Port Dover to do Fred Eaglesmith picnic. I meet Washboard Hank. I meet all of these. I meet Reverend Ken. It's like, where am I? Like, this is unbelievable. These people, like, Oh Susanna was playing, Petunia. I stayed up all night with Willie. I mean, you've heard this story about Willie. We got drunk all night and played guitar and chased horses, and it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. There was kitchen parties, and so I was like, I'm not leaving. I don't, Mom had a spare room, and just things, weird things unraveled, that it was just like, it was a calling. Peterborough literally called me. And I should say, Kim, and my mom reminded me this, remember when we did that Bloom reminiscence thing, rock and roll reminiscence, she said, when Beau first played Peterborough with the Freeway Band, I remember him calling me and saying, Mom, there's this town, Peterborough, there's something about that city. And I I'm glad she reminded me, because when we would do this tour and we'd go play Kingston, Hamilton, and carry on, Peterborough was always in the back of, it was always lingering, the streets and just the people and the landscape. And, it was always, I always remembered Peterborough. And it was like, so when my mom said that she was moving to Peterborough, and as soon as I got there and then playing the folk festival and meeting Dave and Willie and Fred Eaglesmith, it was like, okay, I have found my home. I'm staying. And
I'm curious, because you could have been a musician forever. I mean, you got to Peterborough, obviously, and you got Slips in the High Five going, and you got Dub Trinity, and you've had so many bands, and you've produced 40 albums. If that is true, I've read. So you could have just been a musician, right? But there's this, and I think you and I passed in the night, right? Like, I moved to Toronto in 2001, which must have been around the time you landed on the shores of Peterborough. So, but is there something in the back of your head about theater and acting? I'm just so curious about what is going on that you decide to start writing children's touring plays and auditioning for Fourth Line. Like, what was in the back there, Beau?
yeah, and I should also add, it wasn't just the music and the Peterborough Folk Festival. As that same weekend, Mom said, I want to take you to a play. There's this beautiful property called Fourth Line Theater. And
Was that the weekend?
It was the same weekend. Yeah, it was a doozy of a weekend. Wow. It was. And so we drive there, and yeah, and I remember it was the same weekend because we saw The Devil and Joseph Scriven. I remember, I'll never forget driving up that road and just being like, what is, like, are we in the Shire? Is this area like, like the Canada's greatest secret? And I remember seeing The Devil and Joseph Scriven just the whole time, just being like, what is this? Like, this is like no other theater that I have seen. And I remember it was the same weekend because the next day I went back to the folk festival to play some more gigs, and Chris Wilton was, in his flip flops, and he had his like straw hat, and he was just walking around. It was like, hey, excuse me, I saw you in a play at Fourth Line last night. You were great, And cool Wilton was like, thanks a lot, and he just kept on walking. He's like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, celebrities are just wandering the park.
You just you became such good friends with Phil Oakley too, who opens that play by coming like out of the pond.
Out of the pond. So Kim, to answer your question, when I was in Toronto, it was like music. Just wanted to be a rock star. Theater seemed unattainable in the sense that it was like I didn't have that acting muscle. Had no idea, as a side gig, because I had to work. The music just wasn't cutting it to pay the bills. I worked on film sets as a production assistant and stuff, and that I think terrified me. It was like I loved working on film sets, being backstage, being doing the grip work and video assist, but seeing these actors, it was like, no, that's above me. I'm, it's beyond what I'm capable of doing. But then these my two oldest friends, they went to New York and they saw Rent, and they came back to Toronto and they were knocking on my apartment door like, Beau, we saw the greatest musical. And they proceed to like tell me the whole synopsis, like scene by scene. They told me about these characters like Collins, Angel, all these characters. And they said, Beau, you have to audition. You would be so, wouldn't he be great as Angel? Yeah, yeah. And they would like put makeup on me, and it's like, they would put me through the ringer. Like, what would Beau look like dressed in drag, And so they forced me to go to cattle call of Rent. There's a lineup around Roy Thompson Hall. That's where the auditions were, because Rent was coming to Toronto. And I was like, whatever, I have my guitar. I'll play a couple of my originals for the audition. I get there and I just do it. And then Stephanie Gorin, well-known casting director, she says, thank you. She gives me a piece of paper with a number on it. I leave. I give it to the reception. She's like, okay, so you have a callback next week. You come here. And I'm like, what? And then, I told my friends, they didn't get any callbacks. So I was like, whoa, I go back in and I do it again. Then I get another callback. They give me some sides.
Sides are sections of script, like a section of script.
And it was for three characters: Angel, Collins, and the other guy. There's another black guy or Latino guy. Oh my goodness.
Tay Diggs is the Collins character. Is Tay Diggs Collins?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody will tell us in the chat.
Someone will tell us. Anyways, so I go in and I do my best Angel impression, and it was terrifying, Chris. The director is like sort of telling me to do things while I'm singing and acting, and just like I'm just frazzled and just like sweating, and I was wearing high heels and I was falling over. It was awful. I was just like, I went back to my girlfriends and I'm like, I'm never doing that again. What a horrible experience. Like, I really thought, because I had a callback, and I remember calling my mom and saying, I really believe in this, Mom. I think I'm going to get the part. Little did I know, it's like, no, this is,
who's to say you couldn't have? You didn't, but who's to say you couldn't have? So you come to Peterborough, and does that sort of that Rent thing, just you set it aside, and then is there a moment here where you go, oh, I can try this?
Well, it was seeing the Fourth Line show, The Devil, where it was like, anything is possible with theater. It has been proven to me that anything is possible with theater. So I still didn't get the acting bug, because I was writing.
Patty Jarvis says the character's Benjamin, she thinks.
It starts with a B.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Patty.
Patty Jarvis.
And Benjamin may be it. You're right. I was an apprentice producer for radio jingles for the great Peter Brown in Peterborough. So I still had music on the brain and really felt like this is going to work for me. So Fourth Line never came into play until a theater producer calls me up. He had heard about me because I guess I had just done breakfast television.
Yeah.
And
I only knew it was Peterborough because it was like Tom Reeder, Dave Tuff, who like I was in my loft in the West End of Toronto, and I turn on before heading to Canadian Stage for work, and I'm like, who is this guy? And there's Tom Reeder, and there, like it was all these Peterborough guys and you. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. That was a great, wow.
Yeah.
I wish I had a copy of that. But anyway, so a theater producer in Peterborough called me up and said, hey, yeah, I'd like to meet you. Can you meet me at the Only Cafe? And it's like, oh yeah, I know where that is. And so I go over, and he slides a script across the table, and it's on the front page. It says "Freedom for All," and it was like, oh, this guy needs a person of color to play a slave in chains. I see. And
Is it Ed Schroeder? Poor old Ed Schroeder?
it was an Ed Schroeder play. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it was, I know who it was. Okay.
Yeah.
It was not Ed Schroeder. I know
It
who
was not Ed Schroeder, but it was his play. So he asked me to audition. So the next day I go upstairs, Ken Gibb and Peter Enns, and I got the part. I did my best Morgan Freeman / Denzel Washington impression because I was a big fan of Glory. And we did it at the Pavilion.
Oh, because it was Heritage Pavilion stage, and they actually did it up at the museum outside, right?
Well, no, this was pre Heritage Pavilion. This was 99 or 2000,
Oh, okay.
which was weird. Yeah, Heritage Pavilion stage. I don't know why they named it after a. I don't know.
I thought they did shows up there, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, they might have, but this was early Arbor Theater. So I did that. We toured that. We toured that the Heritage Pavilion stage. Students would come to us. Then we took it. We would go to schools, hop in the car, and it was February, Black History Month, and we would do 30 shows a month. And then I was hired to do other shows for World War II, Remembrance Day, so on and so forth. And so I was like, wow, this is fun, and I'm getting paid for it. And people seem to like me, and I like this camaraderie, and it's very similar to being in a band. You hop in the car and you set up and do your thing. And Phil then, after a show, Phil said, we did a show at the art gallery with Melissa Hall. Oh my goodness.
Like, okay.
What is her name? Last name?
What are you talking about?
Melissa. She's now in LA and she's a producer.
Oh,
I know
Melissa. Yeah, Melissa Hood. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Melissa Hood.
She was a PA on a show I directed, like at Market Hall. Yeah.
So Ed Schroeder wrote a play, Juxtaposition.
Okay.
And we did a show at the art gallery, and it was with a bunch of people: Ken Gibb, Tim Walker, Melissa, and I think Robert Winslow came to see that show.
Okay.
Anyway, after the show, one of the shows, Phil was like, Fourth Line, they're holding auditions. You should audition. But I was like, I don't know. And then some of the other actors were like, yeah, what do you have to lose? And so I go with my stupid resume, like Dishwasher, 1986, like The Fantastics, grade 9. And I go into the Fourth Line office, and that's when it was by the Charlotte Mews.
Yeah.
And I go into the office, and in my peripheral, there's a man sitting in the corner. And now I realized, it was the great Robert Winslow. Mm-hmm. But I submit my resume, and then I get it. Next thing I know, I get an audition at the church, and Kim Blackwell and Rob and Susan and you are there. Rob, Susan, and Winslow. And so I got the part. And that brings me to the acting bug. So I start doing, I do that, and it was. So Kim, you asked me, what was it?
Yeah.
So it was a combination. Things were happening. When I would go to these schools, and I would do this play about the Underground Railroad, and I would see the kids in the audience, and I would have these memories of when I was sitting on the cold gymnasium floor, and a Styx cover band would come in and they would play for the kids, and I just remember people doing presentations for us, and it's something that I looked forward to constantly. And in London, Ontario, the Grand Theatre, I mean, we would have school field trips, and we'd go to the Grand Theatre, and I never could identify with myself. I never could connect. It was too distant. the relationship of the actors on stage and me, little Beau, sitting in the seats, because no one looked like me, and they're under the bright lights and I'm not. And so it is out of grasp. It is out of reach. When I started doing the tours at the school, doing plays about my African diaspora, about my lineage, and doing it without the lights, seeing the kids and the response on their faces, the reaction to our scenes, and the response with the question and answer period after we would do these little plays, that's when it was like, wait a minute, this is malleable, this is tangible, this is, I am in it. This is, it was the material. It was a subject matter that connected me. And again, when I talk about it's a calling, there was a calling that it was like, there is a place for you here, Beau. There is a reason why you are telling these stories, and you can be of service.
It's interesting to me because at some point you make a decision to start writing, right? Once a Flame, From Here to Africville, Freedom Bells, culminating probably with your biggest hit, obviously, your Dora Award winning play, Beneath Spring Hill. What's the that you've toured all over the world, and I'm sure someone's gonna make a movie out of it, one would think. And I know obviously you were a writer before that. You were writing music. You have that amazing song that you and the guy in the Freedom Band wrote. But what can you tell me about the moment where you're like, I think I can write not better, but I have something to say, as you say, about the Black Canadian diaspora experience?
I think again it was the acceptance. I am so not apprehensive, but I need to be convinced. I didn't know that I had it in me, Kim. Um, I I think doing this under the Freedom for All play for so long, understanding the rhythm of the text, the dialogue, the idea of beginning, middle, and end, the journey of a protagonist, just the basic, playwriting 101. I was understanding it. I was quickly understanding it. Being a part of Fourth Line Theater, being part of those reading workshops,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, okay. There's a formula, there's a rhythm, there's a structure. Okay. And then I think a combination of that, and also me being really confused with my identity because of the color of my skin, but hearing these, fantastic stories that my dad would tell me over the years about, George Dixon, the great bantamweight boxer, Africville, and just his 12 brothers and sisters, and him in the Air Force, and his father, sailing, Europe at a young age, and it's like, what are these stories? All of these stories. What's going on? How can I hear more of these stories? And so I was challenged by the producer at the time because I was fed up. The kids were not responding. After a while, it was like, this Underground Railroad play, students are not as engaged as what I would like them to be. And it's really disappointing. And the producer said, well, why don't you write a play then? If you have a better idea, why don't you write a play? And I said, fine. And I went home kind of terrified. Frank Flynn helped me write an Ontario Arts Council Theatre Creators Reserve grant. And Kim, once I started writing that grant, as you know, the more grants that you write, it's like you have a better understanding of it, really shapes your objective. And it's like, wait a minute, this has been a helpful process in just the project that
To
I've set out.
articulate the project before you write the project.
Right. And so my grant proposal, it really was like, well, what do I want to write about? And that was the big thing, is like, well, what would I write about? And it was like, oh, well, my ancestors, uh, Africville, what can the students relate to? Boxing, bullying. So all of these ideas. Um, so then in writing it, I didn't know that it was good until it was tested with a group of people. And if the majority were like, yeah, this is good, this is, and it took tweaking and stuff like that. And then an independent theater company, like, we toured it with Arbor Theater, and then an independent theater company found out about my play, and I was in the process of writing another play about Marie Joseph Angelique, and this theater company in Toronto wanted to pick it up, and they wanted to do a double bill of it at Factory Theater.
The studio
That's right.
space, right? Yeah.
And so Kim, to answer your question, it was a lot of trial and error, but it was also a lot of imitating in the sense, like, well, I love movies. I understand the structure of movies. I love plays. I'm fortunate enough to really check out to be a part of these workshops, and to hear the playwright and the director, usually you, in sort of conversing and working it out and massaging stuff. And it's like, this is okay. I'm going to try it. And,
Well, let me throw this out at you if I can. 4 Dora nominations, 2 wins, 1 Betty Mitchell Award, a Calgary Theatre Critics Award, Toronto Theatre Critics Award. Just, you have worked, like, seriously, Shaw, Stratford, Obsidian, Acting Up, Tarragon several times, Coal Mine, Buddies, Can't Stay Dreaming Hyde Park, Thousand Islands Playhouse, Soul Pepper more than once, right? Look at the plays you've been in of late. I just, like, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Hamlet, The Father, Ghost Quartet, Marjorie Prime, Guides and Dolls, The Motherfucker with the Hat, HMS Pinafore, Passing Strange, Road to Paradise, Real McCoy, Next to Normal, Othello, Yellow Man. Like, you've just exploded everything, right? You kind of break every mold that you put yourself into. Is there a moment when you're doing these small plays and touring them, you're doing some stuff at Fourth Line? I'm curious if there was a moment when that trajectory, which you were on prior to COVID, where that happened from.
The projection.
Like, I wonder if it was finally having that big, huge role in Real McCoy, and knowing that you could carry the play in that way. I know you'd carried plays before, and I could be wrong, but to carry a play like that, the way that you did.
Yeah.
And also, I think you got a lot of recognition. I'm not saying that's what it is, but, like, there seems to have been a shift around 2013, 2014. Like, your career just went crazy.
No, and it's funny, because as you were talking, and it was like, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to give gratitude to Kim and Fourth Line Theater, but I want the people to know, I'm getting a bit emotional here, but I need the people to know that. So I auditioned for Fourth Line Theater. Kim took a big chance because of who I was, or not knowing who I was, but because of the, and I'm not going to say colorblind casting,
Yeah, I don't know what you.
Yeah, I don't want to say colorblind casting, because it's something that you can't avoid. Our skin is, but it was, that was not an issue. If you're doing a play, some people would think, if you're doing a World War I play about soldiers in the trenches, no person of color should be there.
From Peterborough, a boy from Peterborough.
But I think.
Yeah, true. World War I, yeah, maybe not at all.
Mm-hmm. World War I, very few people of color were given weapons. They were given a shovel and told to dig the ditches so the men could, march through the ditches, fight through the ditches. They were more into doing forestry and, removal of shrubs and stuff. So anyway, the point I'm getting at is I was given an opportunity and I seized it. That was the first show where it was like, whoa, I could be Lynn Slotkin. I'm not going to read it because she's always chiming in. She's like usually right.
She's totally right. We'll talk to her in a second. Tell us your story about. I'm
okay.
interested in those moments because you've had a lot of moments in your life where you went around a corner and just changed it up.
Right. And so, Kim, it's people like you that give the opportunity. They see something in someone. They see the potential in someone. It's like, I'm going to give that person a shot. Now, Fourth Line, it was a good call because, he's an actor, he's a musician, and he's local. Let's get him. Everything we do is organic, so we don't have any electricity. So yeah, we'll have him play guitar or sing backstage. That's perfect. It worked out great. But there was some nurturing that was happening because of that opportunity. I was being thrown into a situation and I was given, it was a risk and it was a risk worth taking. And so then so what I'm getting at is I really think it was attrition that, and it was just a slow burn. Like,
right. Okay. All right. Fair
there
enough.
there was stuff that was going on, someone in Toronto, a friend of mine, they were doing the 10 Commandments, the musical or something. And that friend, it's like, oh, Beau would, my agent is looking for someone of this skin color, of this height, of this size. Beau would be perfect. He's doing theater now. Oh, I'm going to call him up. The agent calls me up. It was because of attrition that I got an agent in Toronto and da-da-da-da.
Right.
But yes, so then we do The Real McCoy. And so I also want
Andrew Moody's play, Andrew Moody's fabulous
Andrew Moody's play
about Elijah McCoy. Andrew Moody is in it. You're starring as Elijah McCoy.
Now, Andrew Moody, because of him, I saw The Riot at Factory Theater, and I had never known about Andrew Moody. I had never known of a person of color, of a Black playwright. I'd never knew, didn't know anyone. So I saw Riot, and Andrew Moody was a big part of that, where it's like, if a Black man is writing plays, I can write plays. And the way his writing, it had this, again, this tangible, the topic was tangible and I could understand it. And so it was like, okay, so this isn't just, this is, maybe I could do this. I'm going to take that lead. And so Andrew Moody was a big part of it. And then we get back to The Real McCoy, where Kim, you said, because at the same time also, I was going to be apprentice music director at Shaw, and you said you had originally approached me to do The Real McCoy 2010, or was it 2011? It was 2011. And you said, Beau, you're in a jam here because you have this opportunity to do Shaw. We will wait for you. I hope you don't mind that I'm saying this. And Kim, that was, you see, I'm giving gratitude because it's those little things, those little moments where it's like, you could have easily gone on to someone else. You could have hired Andre Sills. You could have hired Dion Johnson, but you wanted to be loyal. I don't know why you did it, but we don't have to. You did it. You waited for me. You said, Beau, we can wait for you. So I did Shaw. My experience at Shaw, again, being nurtured, took all of that experience. I'm sitting in rooms with great actors, with great playwrights, great directors. I'm absorbing all this knowledge. I come back to Fourth Line. Let's do a show. And we had done the reading with Andrew Moody. And I remember Andrew being really happy with the decision to wait for me to do McCoy. And that was like, whew, I am sitting with, like, this guy he's Andrew Moody. Mm-hmm. And then we do the play, And then I think it was because Andrew Moody was on CBC giving accolades about my performance in The Real McCoy. A director in Calgary is trying to cast a play, Mofo with the Hat.
Right. You say it. I should have said that.
Okay. Yeah, it's too late.
I know. I dropped the bomb.
And then, so yeah, Ron Jenkins, I start getting these calls, and we're trying to figure out a way that I could do an audition. Not sure if it's going to happen, because how do I do an audition? But he called me up, and this is funny, I haven't told you. He said, forget it, going to take a chance. I saw your website, and it was you did a TED Talks at Trent about the importance of arts in rural communities. And I was talking about my first experience going to Fourth Line Theater.
Okay, right.
And he's like, I watched your presentation, and it was beautiful. And the way that you were so eloquent, and what you were talking about, it was great. I think this is going to be a great match. So I got that gig in Calgary because, in some ways it was because of my experience with Fourth Line Theater. And then I get to Calgary, and I was just working on my play Beneath Spring Hill, and I was pitching it to one of the producers out in Calgary. And then they called me and said, we actually focus on our mandate is to do Canadian one-act plays. Would you want to bring your play here? And so, yes, you're right, Kim, like The Real McCoy, because meanwhile, Shaw is like, Beau, would you do this with us? And so
Bradford and Tarragon and hey, I want to ask you, you're a composer, you're a sound designer, you're a musician, you're a singer, you're an actor, you're a writer. When you think of yourself, which is the first one you think of?
Music.
Still.
Yeah, music. I mean, as
you're sitting right there.
I just love music. I can just, is it a physiological thing? Is it, when we talk about soul music, it's this, because I consider myself first and foremost, Kim, a musician, because that's where I feel safest. That's where I feel my voice. I could just sit in my voice and in the timbre, and I'm not tooting my own horn. I don't care if people think I'm good or bad. It's the fact that I'm doing it for me, and that my heart rate goes down. I just feel this, that I have a gift to bring people together. And that's when we talk about soul music. That's what soul music is the idea of taking secular music and bringing people together. And it doesn't matter what it is, whereas acting, there's a muscle and a part of the brain where it's like, we're pretending. This is pretend. And it's kind of a nutty idea that we're adults and we're pretending that we're
playing like little kids.
We're playing. That's right.
I want to ask you, because what I see about you is that you are, and maybe you'll fight me on this, that you are an absolute workaholic. Maybe in the improv world, you say yes to everything. Like, you are the person who says yes to everything. But is it true? Are you a workaholic?
Yeah. I think Andrea, my girlfriend, any partner that I've had in life, anyone I think that knows me would, yeah. And it's I have never been so busy. I've never been so busy, and I say this with
now in COVID. Really? Okay.
And I say that because in the past it's like, well, I'm busy. I have a show at 8 and I have a matinee tomorrow. But I have been constantly just going. And I say it with pride, but it's also it's a scary thing. It's like, especially in our situation, it's like, you know, it's like, why, what is the rush? What do we, what,
Well,
it's
and
like,
I'm curious about then because I read your I did one of those interviews too with Joe, the like the COVID interviews, they called the isolated artist interviews.
right.
Um, but I am curious about that rushing about you, but I'm also curious about to achieve what you've achieved, which is pretty gobsmacking. I mean, one of a handful of artists in this country. What does it take, or what has it cost you in your life to get where you are? Maybe pre-COVID.
Well, I don't have kids. I'm not married. Um, I don't have a social life really. My social life is my work. Um,
And yet, can I just throw that back at you? You know everyone. Like we were at that first Friday a few weeks ago. You and Jay and Lisa and I went to see the gallery openings. You know everyone everywhere you go, and you also seem to somehow make a lot of time for a lot of people in your life.
yeah, yeah, it's true. I mean, I do have yes.
You have
I,
you have incredible capacity for a lot of things, is what it looks like to me. Maybe I'm wrong.
no, I am blessed. Not a day goes by where it's like, some people have asked like, how do you do it? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm a bit concerned in the sense that it's like I'm getting older. I don't know how to slow down, and I'm afraid to slow down. And I think, there's a part of me that is like, shoot, am I afraid of committing to something and sticking with it? Like, the top of this interview, this talk, it was like, I wanted to be a concert pianist. It's like, okay, well, why aren't I? Is it because I was afraid of the work involved with the one thing, just piano, 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 the studying, the tedious, constant work of just practice, practice, practice.
Okay, but I'll just push back. I have seen you write grants when other people would not write grants. I have seen you write plays to deadline. I don't know. How many plays do you have on the go right now? Is it more than 5?
Well, and see that, and this is a thing where I sort of feel like I'm a jack of all trades and master of none. So it's like, yeah, I have 3 plays on the go. Now, you know, with Spring Hill, it was like I was just working on Spring Hill until it was done. Uh, Maybe I have a tendency to just work, run myself too thin.
Right.
I'm not doing well with catchphrases.
Spread yourself too thin, but I'll just
Spread myself. Thank you very much. I'm the type of guy, like, I'm verbally dyslexic. Like, I would say, not to pick hairs, but it's like,
less.
it's like split hairs, Beau.
Split hairs, yeah, I know. I know. That's hilarious.
Just
I wanted to ask you about, and we can just talk lightly about Bloom, but what was that experience like as a whole? You and I, that's a whole nother conversation, but what was it like writing that? What was it like watching it come to life?
it was a dream come true. I have to be completely honest. It was a dream come true. It was the hardest work. It was the most rewarding work, and it was also a real epiphany. In the sense, I don't know if this is an epiphany or just a reminder. It was like at the end of the day, it was like, okay, well, that happened. Like,
and it's done. Like, what was it? 5 years of like this intense, gut wrenching pain for us. That
and
the show.
Yeah, and then a huge show, and I'm in Halifax doing The Color Purple. And Kim, my life was like, I would do the show, I would come back to where I was staying, I'd be working on it, and you had to hold my hand numerous times where it was just like, I can't do this. Like, almost like going to give up. And it wasn't until like the 11th hour. And even when we were in rehearsal that it was like, I was doing rewrites
But did you not leave, close The Color Purple, and drive all night to get back to Bloom?
to get to first day of
First day
rehearsal.
of rehearsal. But that was a big show. I wonder sometimes with that show, and I don't know if I ever said it to you then, but well, we probably, I'm sure I would have. I wondered sometimes if it was a scary show to do because, I just asked you which of those things you are, of all those things those hats you wear, and you say musician first, and you write a play that's going to talk about the thing that you are right in your gut, a musician. Was that part of it ever scary, or am I wrong?
No, you're very right. A lot of that was about my relationship with, my bandmates. A lot of it was, and because of that, it brought back a lot of memories. And also it was a celebration of death.
Hmm.
It was the celebration of something that I can never get back. That we as a country, as a culture, may never get back. And I wanted to get it right. And I wanted it was a tattoo that I never wanted to have removed. And a tattoo that I never wanted to regret wearing, for not just my sake, Kim, but for your sake, for Robert's sake, for the two of you. I desperately wanted to impress the two of you, leave an impression on that land and in that theater space. Desperately wanted to leave the right impression, and I wanted to do you proud. I wanted to do the team proud. And I'm not saying this, I'm it's weird how sincere I'm being and how transparent, because it was, you have to understand, my Fourth Line was my first, wasn't, it was first professional gig, in the sense that, there was a contract, there was a show, it was a repertory company. Arbor Theater was my first theater paying, but you know what I'm saying. So to have that experience in 2002 and to be away from it for so long, to cultivate all this experience, to learn all these skills in the theater industry, and then to come back to the nest and be like, okay, well, this is what I am bringing to you
and to
guys.
meld this place that you feel you have, that you're deeply grateful to, with your stories of being a musician and your truth of being a musician. I think that's what was so beautiful about it.
Yeah, and the truth of it, yeah, it was like, because it's a young man's game, and that's why I realized, is like, I don't want to say good. Maybe it was also not wanting to say goodbye to the process, not wanting to say goodbye to these characters, because and in turn, what happened? It's like, now what? The play, and that's what's so unbelievable about theater. It's aside from dance, it's the most ephemeral piece of artwork. It's like, it's gone.
I know, and that's what's so interesting. I read your piece in the Isolated Artist too, talking about, and I agree with you that theater online, recording it, watching it, it is not like, I know we have to do it right now, but it ain't why we do it. It's that relationship between art and audience live with a group. That's what's amazing. And it's pretty neat, weird for me. I mean, I directed something this fall, but the last thing I directed that was of the epic scale of the work I'm used to was Bloom. Yeah. And then you didn't even see the closing, right? Did you went and took your mom's ashes to Europe?
That's right.
So you didn't even see the closing.
Wow.
People loved. So first of all, I want to ask you one more thing, or a couple more things, and then I want you to maybe play a song. I read in another article that you said the two reasons you love being on stage is you love being loved and you love serving people. And I think you've talked about that a lot tonight. And I liked those phrases. They seem to encapsulate you. It was interesting that once your whole world ended with COVID, and I moved to Peterborough after 19 years in Toronto. You moved back to Peterborough to regroup, to live cheaply while we wait for the theaters to open again. That and I wanted to try to respond to equity, diversity, inclusivity. And so you agreed to come on and help with some projects. Will you just tell us quickly, in your role as associate artist, about the Sizzlin series?
Yeah, so the Sizzlin series, I wanted to tap into. I wanted to, talk about being transparent. It's like I wanted to know where all the Black people were.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are all the people of color? Please, I'm going back to, it's like when the producer slid the script across the table, Freedom for All. It's like, really? Like, I'm the only person of color you can find. So
well,
there was
Aaron Cavan had left Peterborough at that point, right? So
so I wanted to no, but you're right. But it's like, where are they? And where is the what is happening with the political climate, with the racial climate? What's happening these days? What are we feeling? What are we experiencing? But also, can we not just surface to just celebrate our existence? Because we matter, and because of the untold story. We all have an untold story. We have all of a story just waiting to be told. And it just feels that people of racial diversity are the last ones in line to tell their story. Mm-hmm. And there is something, and there's a correlation of, when we talk about inclusivity with theater, we're wanting to eradicate exclusivity, because it is not doing a service to the work. If we don't see everyone in the room, we are doing a disservice to the work that we want to produce. It is not the best work that it can be. If there is an Asian person in the next room waiting to do a dance audition, well, you know what? I don't even want to get into it.
Okay.
What I'm getting at is the same applies with everyday life, whether it's politics, whether it's creating something, whether it's in the workplace. It's like, you have no idea. We must understand before we judge. And the only way to understand, we have to hear those stories. We have to meet these people. So I felt Sizzlin series was the best way to get to know these people. And
you're doing 4 of them, is that right?
Releasing 4 of them once a week, and then we're going to do another 4. And these 4 we're focusing on people of African heritage, people of African lineage. And I would like to have the other 4 to get to know the Indigenous community, go to Rice Lake and focus on their culture and what they have to share. I have learned so much, Kim, and I selfishly, Michael Hercombe is he's my videographer, and he's editing it, and we've worked together on this. In some ways, I was saying, I feel kind of selfish, because I feel like I'm getting the most out of this. Yeah. And Michael felt the same way. We're working as documentarians, but we're also, it's like we're the first ones to hear these stories, to have these conversations. A lot of this exciting stories that were told from these people, we couldn't get on camera because it's we only have so much time. The concept is that it's a sizzle reel, and this was actually your idea to call it that, because a sizzle reel is like just a quick, a 2-minute sort of promo reel of like a trailer, so to speak. And with today's culture, with Instagram and social media, just everything just people's attention span, it's just like, wow, you got to get in there, in and out quickly, or it's,
For
you know,
sure. I feared this, that I could probably talk to you for another hour, and I have to let you go. And I know people are watching, and there are probably questions. I'm wondering if I don't want to say goodbye yet. I wonder if we should answer some questions, and then maybe you would play a song at the end.
sure,
What that would be.
sure.
Lindy, I'm going to ask you, are there some questions?
There are. We have quite a few, so
yeah,
stop me if you need to for time, but I'll dive right in.
Okay.
So from Kaylee, hi Beau, hi Kim. Since being in Bloom, a rock and roll fable, I have been inspired to write my own small musical. So she has a question for Beau and a question for Kim. For Beau, she asks, any suggestions for writing songs for musicals? And for Kim, do you have any advice for making plays look as amazing and effortless as you do? Wonderful, you both.
That's funny. Well, Beau, you go. Do you want to talk about writing musicals?
Yeah, I think so. Everything is better with music. So case in point, I can be talking about music, and just this, for some reason, the music in the background is just creates a blanket of just pillowy softness, and it grabs your attention, and for some reason you're more engaged. That being said, I think something has to come first. Get the idea down on paper. You have to get it all down on paper first. The music will come, because you can do anything to a melody. We all know that, but I can turn that into or it can be a march. So, but the melody is intact. And before the melody, you need the lyrics. You can do anything with the melody, anything with the chords. If you have good lyrics, that's really going to set the pace to your story. So, in short, get the idea down, get the verses or semblance of a verse, chorus. What is the hook? What is the meat of the song? What is the point you are trying to get across? Get that onto paper. Then you have a starting ground. I feel good. James Brown, I feel good. There you go. Hit song. Hungry Heart. There you go. Song writes itself. Kim, take it away.
Yeah, well, I liked what you said. I think with me, it's like just to direct something like that. I think that was the question. Now I've forgotten a bit, but is to just play all the time. I mean, I have this incredible gift of that huge space at the farm, all those people, and so I call it kind of sculpting with bodies, like some of the things like the Mariposa folk festival in the show. I just needed bodies and more bodies and more bodies to kind of create what you wrote, which was probably a folk festival with 10 or 20,000 people, and we had 15 people there. But there's something about that space at Fourth Line. I love working outside, obviously, that allows us to, people will, and that's the other thing I should say, Kaylee, people will believe anything if you tell them. Like if I told you this pen was a knife and I was committed to it as an audience member, we'd believe it was a knife. All right, Miss Lindy, what else?
Okay, thank you. From Patty, more of a comment. She says, Beau, what you are saying about performing in schools is so important and poignant. The idea of being in service. Thank you so much for sharing this and reminding us of how essential access to these experiences is for all young people. And on that note, actually, another comment and question from Susan Oliver on the theme. She says, Beau, you mentioned that you felt at home at the Arts High School in Ottawa. Did you feel the same way inside and or outside of the arts community? When you came to Peterborough, which historically has been a very homogenous Caucasian community, how did your experience affect your creative path? And do you or would you ever do local school talks about your life?
Those are Those are great questions. First, Lindy, I just want to say, Patty, thank you so much. Patty Jarvis was actually she when she was working at Prologue booked my show to the schools, and because of Prologue, Patty Jarvis specifically, my show Beneath Spring Hill did very well, and it circulated numerous schools in the GTA, and I'm very grateful to Patty and having that alliance. As far as coming to Peterborough, I will tell you. Sorry, Lindy, who was the person that asked this?
Susan Oliver.
Susan Oliver. Susan, I will tell you that because of Peterborough, I found myself. The arts community embraced me. I knew that I belonged here. I knew that because I would have access to other great artists. It gave me the room to explore, to fail, and to improve, to expand, to improve my skills. There's I don't know whether it's economically, I don't know whether it's just having space. It's a population thing. Of course, it has to do with the community. It's changed, but that's just a sign of the times. That's evolution. But yes, it was a very similar embrace that I experienced at Canterbury. It was sort of like, a weird, it was like, I'm trying to think of the right word, like not
Well,
riff.
it's not the only, it's like Cheers. Like everybody knows your name or something, right? Like if you spend enough time in downtown Peterborough, people will know who you are, and they'll have seen you in a show, or you'll see them in a show, or you'll go to their gig, or it has a really beautiful community feel to it.
Yeah, and it's like multi-generational, multicultural people just working together and just ideas and stuff. Whereas in the city, I was just so bogged down with got to pay rent, who's coming to my gig, and just promoting myself, and just it gets very exhausting, and it gets very depressing when you're just sort of like trying to find out who you are and trying to find resources to get that support. When you don't have that support, when you have the loss of a community, you can feel very alone and easily throw in the towel, which happens a lot every day. People just throw in the towel. It's like, I don't have that support that I need. So Peterborough it changed my life. Peterborough changed my life. Yeah.
Oh, Patty's sending you love words. Margie Chudd is sending you love words.
Oh, Margie, hi.
I know Margie's there too. Lindy, do you want to give us a couple more, and then I'm going to ask Beau to play something, and then we'll let him go.
Sure. So yes, I just have two more. So from Lynn Slotkin, she says, Beau, you're so creative. You're a musician, an actor. You write music, write plays, or a musical director. It all seems effortless. Does anything scare you? Thanks for it all.
This is Lynn?
Yeah.
It is, yes.
Lynn, you know what scares me? Folding fitted sheets. I can't fold a fitted sheet. I don't know how to make it so nice and compact.
How did this come up between you and Lynn Slotkin?
Oh, she sent me, someone posted, fitted sheets. How do you figure it out? And I was like, oh my God, I can relate. How do you fitted sheets? And then Lynn, bless her heart, sends me this YouTube tutorial on folding fitted sheets, which is, the tutorial itself is difficult.
Is it? I want to try it because that's my obsession. My closet.
So also Karen Robinson put on Twitter, she tweeted folding fitted sheets, and hers is the best, but I've lost her video. But anywho, aside from that, Lynn, does anything scare me? Yeah. Failure. I'm so afraid of failure. I hate letting people down. I can't stand it. And and every gig that I do before going on stage, just I am terrified. I love the process. The process I love. I would rather open the show and leave. She's good. I don't want to read what she says.
I know. What is she saying? Beau, dear, failure is your best friend. You never let anyone down. Never.
Well, I love you, Lynn. I love getting your Tootsie Rolls and your, yeah. You are, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. I'm working on not being afraid because we have nothing to fear. I mean, what do we have to lose?
We know now. We know after you.
I know, right?
I know. One more, Lindy, and then we'll ask Beau to play something.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. From Jessica, she says, Beau, you are an artist, one of my favorite Canadian artists, truly. Oh. You have been in and created so many incredible shows. Is there a particular role that really stays with you or you feel has made a large impact on you? If so, which roles, characters, and why?
Wow, it's a good one. Thank you. Thank you for that. Wow.
I know which one it was. It was the musician on stage through the whole entire show in The Art of Silent Killing. No, I'm joking. No.
Well, you're right about Passing Strange.
Oh, that's my kid calling me. Sorry.
Oh, come on, Maud. Take the bus home.
I know exactly. But yes.
I'm going to say, yeah.
Passing Strange. Is that what you said?
I'm going to say Passing Strange. You know, The Real McCoy is a close one, but Passing Strange because it was so close to who I could relate so much to that character. Yeah, and just Phil Aiken. I've looked up to Phil Aiken. He was a real mentor when I was starting to write plays. And it was that show, Passing Strange, was meant for me. I was meant to play that part. And then the other one is Beneath Spring Hill, the role of Maurice Ruddick. Right. I want to tell you two reasons why. Because of that process, going through that, and touring that to schools, I met so many people that heard about the bump in the Spring Hill mining disaster. I met so many people whose grandparents were involved with the working in the mine. I met so many people of the Spring Hill community, people all over Canada that could relate to the play and could relate to Maurice Ruddick, and people that were so grateful that story was being told. And the second reason why that is my one of my greatest roles is because I had a fantastic director.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention this. Yes,
Linda Cash. I will always be grateful for what she has given me, for what she has taught me. Because of her, I really was able to. I was given that again. When we talk about gratitude, giving credit where credit is due, Linda Cash was a driving force behind that production, behind that play, and I'm forever grateful, and I hope she knows that, and I need people to know that, and
if anybody's talking to her, text her and tell her. I owe her a phone call. I'll tell her. Hey, so I'm not sure what you're going to play or what we should have you play because you have so many incredible songs. What was the song that everybody was crazy about, that the mums were all crazy about? Is that a song that still exists around?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was, you mean with the Freeway Band?
Yeah. And don't play that one, or you don't have to. I was just curious what song it was. I was like, is it Groovy Days? Is it Hanging On?
We Freeway Band had so many hits. Wow. There was, I think, yeah, there was one called Crying Times. There was also one, Cafe Phoenix. But, this one, because it was the first song that I ever wrote, which was the one that yes, our mothers kind of came knocking on each other's door like, do you hear what our sons wrote? I was 6 years old when I found out that life had its ups and downs. I was 6 years old when I found out that London was just a town. There was my mother and my sister too. There's my father who's a preacher and my brother too. 'Cause it's a groovy day on a Saturday. What a sunny day. Feeling alright. It's a groovy day on a Saturday. What a sunny day. Feeling alright. Gary had a family. I digged his sister, thought the parents seemed alright. My mom was loved by the one who said I do until love do us part. We used to sit around, play long darts by the pool, shoot dice at night. We thought we were cool, 'cause it's a groovy day on a Saturday. What a sunny day. Feeling alright. It's a groovy day on a Saturday. What a sunny day. Feeling alright. I took my bike, I like this verse, drove it so fast down the hill I couldn't even scream. I said, it's alright, don't scream. Think of all the things that you haven't seen. Little birds that fly so high, worn out weeds that could not bloom, freedom fighters that could not die, or not even an eclipse of the moon. 'Cause it's a groovy day on a Saturday. What a sunny day. Feeling alright. It's a groovy day on a Saturday. What a sunny day. Feeling alright. Nice.
So it was good. I had no idea it was Groovy Day. So of course Groovy Day was in bloom, and I always remember the band, the Spree Street Ramblers, learning to play that, the bike going down the hill. It's hard.
Yeah. It's a lot of words to get in one.
One little bit.
Verse.
That's such a great song. You're so great. Thanks for doing this with me.
Well, thanks, Kim. This is like, we've known each other for so long, and we get so busy. Like, talk about workaholic. You're a workaholic, and I love you dearly, and we fight like brothers and sisters. Worse, I don't fight.
No, you don't fight with your sister
No.
way that we fight. No, I know.
But I love you so much, and we haven't talked like this for a long time, and thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for doing it, and thanks for doing everything you're doing with the as the associate artist at the theater. And I can't wait for the world to open up again and to get to see you on stage, Beau. It's always such a pleasure, and to see what you're next creating in all of those little theater writing mills that you are in across this province. So thank you all for being here and listening to us chat with each other. And thanks, Beau. Have a good night.
Okay, love you.
Love you too. Bye.